Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Let's Talk program. I'd like to begin by being very, very mindful that I speak on Aboriginal land that has never been ceded, the land of the Cammeraygal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to remember and pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal people who may be with us. And so welcome to tonight's talk. Tonight I am talking about core issues on the path of spiritual growth. And core issues is quite a big subject, as you will discover. So I won't get through them all tonight. And I want you to feel free to interrupt me so that this is an interactive session rather than saving your questions up, because, you may well have questions or comments to make, so it's fine to make them. And first of all, what is a core issue? Well, an issue is any conflict or concern or potential problem, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that is incomplete for us or indicates that change or action is needed on my part. As I grow up, I can have conflicts with the environment. And when I say the environment, that could refer to my family, my parents, my loved ones, my partner, people I work with, all of that fits into the environment. And so anything that's incomplete for me is going to come up in my life one way or another. When I commit to a spiritual pathway in life, it's a bit like getting into a seriously committed relationship, in that our baggage will come to the fore in a multiplicity of ways. The closer I get to another in a relationship, then the more my unresolved conflicts with the environment will pop out. And as I move ever more deeply into a spiritual practice, exactly the same thing occurs. In a one-to-one relationship, the closer I get to the other, the more this happens. The more my unresolved issues pop up. That's what closeness and intimacy do. And on the spiritual path, it's exactly the same. The more deeply I get into the practice, then the more my issues are going to come up. And it's very enhanced by the meditation itself. Because meditation, I'm sure I've said this any number of times, meditation brings up anything that is repressed in me, whether it's been repressed from childhood or last week, it's going to come up. The more recently repressed stuff comes up first. The deeper my spiritual practice, then the more my issues and whatever is repressed in me is going to come up, just as it will do in a one-on-one relationship. And meditation actually facilitates anything unfinished in me coming up. That's what it does. So This is why intimate relationships and spiritual growth pathways offer excellent scope for emotional, psychological, and spiritual growth. Possessing a willingness to embrace change at this level is really important, so that I can face and take responsibility for my demons or my issues. This is key. And so the core issues that are most common are, number one, top of the list, control. And in some order or another, we have trust, we have dealing with feelings, being over-responsible, neglecting my own needs, all or none thinking and behaving, a high tolerance for inappropriate behaviour, difficulty resolving conflict, low self-esteem, fear of abandonment, grieving ungrieved losses, being real, and difficulty giving and receiving love. So, where to begin? It's not that I sort of try and work my way through the list. It's a question of being aware, because these conflicts or patterns come up in my life and my relationships, but I may not be clear just which of these issues is involved, because they don't actually present as issues, but rather as just problems in everyday life, the hiccups that present. So it requires persistent consideration and really becoming aware of things that keep coming up, of patterns, and describing how I feel. And this I maybe do through journaling, or I may have somebody like a counsellor or a really good friend, that someone I can talk to, so that I can become clear on which issue or issues are involved. And so, journaling is a very useful tool for identifying our unconscious negative life patterns. So let's look at all or none thinking and behaving. Dualistic thinking operates here, as we see people, places, or situations in life as either good or bad. It's also called splitting, as I lurch between one extreme and the other. The pendulum swings, and I go from the extreme swing of the pendulum right back over to the other extreme of the pendulum. For example, I either love someone to death or I hate them with a passion. So there's actually no middle ground and no ability to see the other person as a composite of good qualities and areas that, like all of us, they need to work on, as opposed to the composite that they really are. I judge myself equally as harshly in this kind of black and white fashion, seeing only one facet of myself, of other people or situations, and ascribing meaning to it based on my completely imbalanced, one-eyed perception. So thinking in this way means, I'm never seeing anything in a complete way. And so I then behave accordingly. And it's possible that I could come across as rigid or judgmental, punitive or perfectionistic, or the absolute opposite, out of control, unable to manage myself. And so this results in complicated relationships and, of course, the suffering that goes along with that, because there's no middle ground as I unrealistically continue to limit my options in life and wonder what the hell is going on. And so the remedy for all or none thinking and behaving is to consciously stay away from the extreme polarities. The 1 or the 100, this end of the continuum or this end of the continuum. So I need to move in towards the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 and always aim for the center point, because it's the place of balance. So I need to stay away from the edges and point myself towards the middle. And so the either or is replaced by both and. So instead of ruling nearly everything out, I start ruling everything in. And this really expands the possibilities for me in my life. They just expand incredibly. It's easy to rule things out, rule out possibilities and choices in life. But it narrows me down, and it narrows my potential down, and it really narrows down the possibilities for me. So rule number 1, jettison the black and white and go for shades of grey. Staying well away from the extremes of the pendulum swing. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So next we have control. And as I said, control is this really dominant issue for the vast majority of people in life. And so no matter what we think we have to control, whether it's somebody else's behaviour or my own behaviour or something else, this part of me, which we tend to call the codependent part, it tends to latch onto this notion and won't let go. And the result tends to be suffering, confusion, and a lot of frustration. We can't control life. We really have very little control in life. That is the reality. What I can control is myself and my reactions. And so the more I try to control life, the more out of control I am going to feel, because I am focusing so much attention on it. So frequently, the person who feels out of control will be obsessed with the need to be in control. And what is another word for control? Attachment. And wise people will find that attachment, or needing to be in control, is the basis of suffering, as Buddha pointed out. Suffering definitely is a part of life, and we all may have to suffer before we can begin to consider the alternatives. A bit of suffering is actually a very good teacher, I have to say. So suffering can point out the path toward peace of mind, when I see that I keep suffering over the same old thing in life, it becomes very evident to me, or it should, that something's got to give here, and it's me. I'm going to have to do something about myself, because I can't change what's out there. I can't change other people. I can't change external situations. I can't change the world, but I can change the way I react, and I can change my attitude, and I can change myself. And so slowly I will discover that one of the most powerful and healing acts in life is to give up my need to always be in control. This really is so freeing, so incredibly liberating, to just let go and let it be. You know, let people do their thing, let situations do their thing. You know, I don't have to hold things together. I just have to hold me together. And so this freedom is that our true is that of our being the true self, that I'm getting into that very beautiful, real part of me. And so in this context, the word surrender can be used. And of course, it doesn't mean to give up or, you know, to lie down, to bow to someone. It's not what it means. That's a kind of military sense. So it doesn't, you know, it doesn't mean I'm losing the war, but rather it means the one who surrenders wins the struggle of trying to control and ameliorates most of the resulting suffering, needless suffering. And this, I have to practice this as an ongoing process in life. It's not a goal that I achieve once. I'm practicing it constantly. Let go, let go. When I realise I'm holding on to something, that's when I have to start practicing letting go. Because, well, control, really and truly, it leads us into very manipulative behaviours and demanding behaviours and ridiculous expectations of others, and often myself as well. And, you know, I'm sure all of you, and certainly I have seen this play out with people in their relationships. You know, it can absolutely destroy relationships. It can also, when I'm on the spiritual path, really contaminate my spiritual relationships and my relationship with the spiritual path that I am on. So needing to be in control is intimately related to and includes quite a number of other significant life issues. So it can be about dependence and independence, you know, willpower, fear of losing control, you know, trying to protect my power base. If I believe I have some status in the organisation, then I might see others as a potential threat to my power base. And so, you know, this is how control is constantly playing out. But when I'm in my true self, none of that is part of the true self. It's all ego-driven. And so experiencing feelings and trust, anger, self-esteem, shame, being spontaneous, being able to nurture myself, all or none, and expectations of self and others, all of these things are playing out. So many people have not worked through these very important issues in life. But it's possible that most of the time they will believe they have overcome, or in other words, controlled these issues and all other life problems. They may even believe they can somehow control life itself. And, that is really delusional. To think you can control life is completely and utterly delusional. And it may be hard for some to learn that life cannot be controlled. We come from a race of humans that is hell-bent on controlling nature. This is the white capitalist patriarchy. The whole thing is controlling nature. And what's the result of that? Destroying the planet environmentally. And so life is a powerful and mysterious process, and it goes on no matter what we do. Life can't be controlled because it's far too rich, it's far too unlimited and spontaneous and rambunctious to even be fully understood, much less controlled by our, ego-driven mind. And so at this point, we can discover that there is a way out, a way to get free of the suffering with always needing to be in control. And the way out is to surrender. And then gradually to become a co-creator of my life. I describe the process of being a co-creator. Well, I've described it before because I believe, we are co-creators of our own life and of our own self. And when I take responsibility for my existence, only when I take full responsibility for my own existence, and I have the depth of understanding that the life that I feel I have been given is something that I have given myself through my past actions. And that's a huge thing, taking responsibility and surrendering control. It's a very wise person that emerges from successfully doing both of these things. Because it's hard to learn that life can't be controlled. And when I surrender, this is where the spiritual aspect of life, becomes so pivotal. Because this is when I really start doing the very, very important work on myself, where I can really turn my life around and raise myself out of the victim position, because when I'm trying to control everything underneath that, it's because I'm in the victim stance in life. You know, I feel stuff is just randomly happening to me, or other people have control over me or my life in some way, or situations. And actually, none of that is really true. It's just a perception. If I feel like a victim, I will feel like life is doing this to me, or people are doing this to me, where that is not the reality. And when I stop trying to control everything and everyone, and just accept what is, and get myself, take responsibility for my existence, and just allow life to happen to me, because that's what it's doing anyway. When I'm trying to control, I'm blocking energy. I'm seriously blocking energy. And so things can't come to me in the way in which they are meant, and possibly they can't come to me at all, because, you know, I've got to control everything. And so that letting go and that surrender is, you know, like this huge sigh of relief. And when I do this, I begin to discover who I truly am, and to feel really alive. And so the next one, core issue, is about being over responsible. And so if you have, this is a core issue, you know, very often associated with being the oldest child in the family, where you had to kind of get into a sort of parenting role with the younger siblings, you know, not necessarily, but possibly. And if all was not well in the family, if there was some dysfunction, then, you know, a child can, if parents aren't being responsible, then children will step into that role and become very, very overly concerned with taking responsibility. It's very, very sad when this happens, because that child ceases to have a childhood at that point, very often. And because they're trying to be the little parent, sometimes they're trying to look after their own parents. You know, if they've got a parent who's drinking, if their parents are fighting, if there's violence, then, you know, kids just have the most terrible time. And they will become over responsible. And it may have seemed the only way to avoid many painful feelings. Taking responsibility in childhood can give the illusion of being in control, but it's only an illusion. And, you know, as that child grows up, what worked then won't keep working. And when children adopt these behaviours, if they're in a sort of dysfunctional family or a dysfunctional situation, so they learn these behaviours as kids, they will keep practicing them as they grow older. And they will, as they grow up, they will start trying to solve all of life's problems by doing that one thing, being over responsible. And if someone is being over responsible at work, they're taking on too much work, they're constantly trying to please other people, they become a real people pleaser, or they're looking for approval from their colleagues, from the boss, whatever, and they just wear themselves out, they grind themselves, just trying to take all this responsibility. And, of course, what may have appeared to work for me in childhood, it won't work. When I grow older, it will start to kill me. It will really start to hurt me and come back and really bite me. And so instead of being, over responsible, other people may be irresponsible. They may be passive, go into the victim stance, feel as though they're victims of the world. And it's equally helpful for those people to work through the processes associated with looking at the core issues. People who have become passive, let-goers, victims, and so on, assertiveness training can be, quite helpful in those situations. And so now the next core issue is neglecting our own needs. So disowning and neglecting our own needs is intimately related to being over-responsible. Both are part of our false self. It may be that I can use journaling here to observe these behaviours in myself and identify people and places where I can get my needs met in a healthy manner. Of course, I have to know what my needs are. And, if I'm repressing my own needs and using dysfunctional methods of getting my needs met, then, I have to give all that up. And so observing my behaviours, my own processes and my own patterns is really, really important. Identifying, once I know what my needs are, once I'm aware of what I'm doing, I can change. If I'm not aware, I can't change anything. And so I need to identify where I can get my needs met in a healthy way. Certainly not in an unhealthy way. So there could be quite a concerted effort needed here. So, if I'm working some kind of program, I could work some kind of program. People go to all kinds of programs for their personal growth. There's Landmark and, so many others. And, having a guide or a buddy or someone with who you can share at this level of self-observation and working on yourself, it's really good. It's so helpful. So identifying people and places where I get my needs met in a healthy manner is such an important thing to do. And then gradually, as more and more of my needs are met, I discover a crucial truth. that I am the most influential, effective, and powerful person who can help me get what I need. And the more I realize this, the more I can seek out, identify, ask for, and actually realize what my needs are. And understand, learn how to get them met in a healthy way. And as I do this, I will begin to flourish spiritually. And my confidence will be reinforced, and my self-esteem, because I don't need other people, places, and things in the way that I used to. And so I can live in a very much healthier way. And this is very, very good for confidence and self-esteem and self-respect. So, this is how I can really awaken and flourish and grow and create a new self here, which is, of course, my original self. And the wonderful psychologist Virginia Satir, now she was around. Virginia Satir was around. Her work was very prominent during the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And she was an absolute groundbreaker with family and group therapy. And she did amazing work in America. Or maybe it was England. I can't remember. So now we're going to move on to the high tolerance for inappropriate behaviour. Boy, is this important. When a child has come from a dysfunctional family or a contextual situation that is unhealthy, then they can grow up not knowing what is normal, healthy, or appropriate. And having no other reference point on which to test reality, they think their family and their way of life is the way it is. With all its trauma, all its suffering, all its dysfunction, they think, well, this is the way it is. And, kids learn from their parents, from their families, from their context, whatever that may be. May not be family, but the context that they grow in, they will learn the rules. And when we assume the role that we have adopted in a family of origin, maybe quite a dysfunctional role, and let's face it, our families and our work environments can really strongly tend to promote this kind of dysfunctional role playing. And if we become fixed in this role, we don't realise that there is any other way to be. And so in my personal growth, in my pathway of personal growth, I may need appropriate supervision and feedback from skilled and safe other people to slowly learn what is healthy and what is appropriate. Other related issues include being over-responsible, neglecting my own needs, feelings, dealing with feelings, boundaries, and, of course, shame and low self-esteem. And if somebody has grown up in a family or a situation where boundaries were just stomped on and crushed and violated, for instance, an alcoholic family, an abusive family, or whatever, then kids don't learn healthy boundaries. And my professional experience tells me that having broken boundaries creates, at the most basic and fundamental level, problems from the ground up. And until that repair work is done, it's really hard to repair other things. To me, boundaries are at the basis of our personal and spiritual development. And I have spoken about boundaries on this program, perhaps some time ago, but I have. And so I need to learn what healthy and appropriate boundaries are in order to have a place from which I can do the rest of the work on myself. Because trying to work on myself when my boundaries are all over the place and completely broken, or I'm walled off, and impermeable, then I can't grow. Until I have healthy boundaries, honestly, I can't grow. And to me, it's a big part of the spiritual life is developing really, really healthy boundaries, around time, around, how I deal with all of the aspects of life. If I don't have good boundaries, how will I make time to meditate? And so the last one that I'm going to talk about is fear of abandonment. That's tonight, is fear of abandonment. And generally, this goes all the way back to my earliest seconds, minutes, and hours of existence. And it relates to issues of trust and distrust, and is often exaggerated among children who grew up in troubled families. And so to counter this fear, it is easy to adopt an attitude of mistrust and generalize that. Mistrust and cynicism. So we shut our feelings down so that we don't feel the hurt. We don't trust anybody. And if parents have actually threatened to abandon a child, I have seen this happen. Parents doing this as a disciplinary measure. I saw this in the supermarket not that long ago, a couple of years ago. I was in the supermarket and there was a mother. She had two little ones, in the shopping cart, and they were grabbing lollies off the lolly counter and, Mum, can we have this? How kids do. If they're not properly disciplined, And she just said to them, and they were tiny kids, she said, well, I'll have to go and leave you in somebody else's house if you're going to behave like that. I won't be able to take you home. I'll just have to give you to somebody else. And those kids, I will just watch their faces fall apart. They were terrified. And, she could see that it worked, so she laid it on with a trowel. And I just had to go and say something to her, didn't I? So I did. I spoke to her very quietly and away from the kids. And I said, look, I did overhear, and I'm sorry to butt in, but you have to remember that children believe everything you tell them. And I watched the terror on your children's faces when you said that to them. They think you mean it. And you're actually doing them a lot of damage. She just looked at me aghast and just wouldn't speak to me. I thought I might cop an earful, but she just didn't speak. And I said, look, I'm sorry, but I just feel a lot of concern for your children. And anyway, I went on my merry way. But if children have been treated like this, the fear of abandonment will become very, very, very real. And, I was working with a guy in one of the prison settings that I worked in many, many, many years ago. And he was telling me that as quite a small child, he and his little brother, the parents used to lock them up. They wouldn't be allowed to go to school. They'd be both locked up in separate bedrooms, and they wouldn't be fed. They grew up in another country, and they are of another race. And he said that he used to, at night when the house was quiet, he used to get out of his window, climb out, and he would break into the kitchen through another window. He would go and get food. He would then climb out the kitchen window, go and climb in his little brother's bedroom window and feed his brother. And when they were old enough to put on a plane alone, and they're still very young kids, the parents put them on the plane and sent them to another city, to another country, with the story that they would be met. And so they were taken off the plane, and there was nobody there to meet them. And they were there running around the airport for days. No food, no one to care for them, no one to look after them, just not knowing what to do. I mean, they were kids. And I mean, it was one of the absolute worst abandonment stories I've ever heard. So, both these guys ended up at an early age in the juvenile justice system. And, of course, the authorities eventually were called and came and got them. And they grew up in a whole series of foster homes where they were abused, and, this saga of horror. And so they both, of course, ended up on drugs at a pretty early age. So abandonment can be a very, very real threat. Using, abandonment as a disciplinary measure, if parents do that or adults do that to children, it is really, really wrong. It's terribly cruel and traumatizing to a kid. And kids may not show it on the surface, but it is absolutely a form of passive child abuse. And so I'm going to finish here. I haven't finished with core issues, but I am going to finish here for tonight. And so I'm wondering if there are any questions at this point.
Jude, just a comment. Okay. The one about letting go, I actually love that one. Okay. The power to let go.
Yeah, the control thing.
The control, yeah. So letting go and making it easy.
Yes.
But
surrender.
Surrender. So if we're surrendering, how much time do we need to actually for the other person? I suppose surrendering ourselves is a different story. And in these circumstances, how much time do I need for the other person to actually surrender to me, I suppose, in a way?
Well, I can't answer that question. I can't possibly answer that question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one, that one.
Well, I think this issue of expecting someone else to surrender to me is
that's not going to happen.
Flawed to begin with.
Yes.
It's unrealistic.
That's right, yeah.
And it's, I'm just setting myself up with unrealistic hopes or expectations. And if that person doesn't, then where does that leave me?
I think it's like you said, don't expect anything from anyone. So no expectation from others.
Exactly. I may have expectations of myself as long as they're not ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, to put high expectations on other people, I'm setting myself up for disappointment and suffering and lots of other things. And so I block the energy. If I have demands or expectations of somebody else or unrealistic expectations of myself, then all I'm going to do is block the energy.
Yes, true.
And get stuck. And so I'm not seeing others as they truly are. I'm not seeing myself as I truly am. And I'm not in the flow.
Yeah.
I block the energy, and when I block the energy, I get stuck. And so things can't come to me, things can't develop in a natural, flowy way because energy needs to move. Energy needs to flow. And when I let go...
Life is energy.
Yeah. When I let go, what is meant to come to me can come to me. But when I'm blocking the energy, things can't come to me because I'm expecting something that is not ever going to come to me. And I block that which can come to me and would otherwise come to me, which in the big picture is going to be far, far better for me. I have to trust, this is where trust comes in. I just have to let go and trust.
Trust life. Trust everything that's happening. Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, because what is meant to be is meant to be. And it may not be the way I think it should be, but that's my control stuff. Exactly. And so, I need to really be able to recognise my control stuff.
Yes.
Because it will just get in the way again, time and time and time again, and I can cause myself so much suffering. Yeah. And just block my own progress.
And another thing was maybe another topic for another session would be good, is the behavior one, assertive behavior, subnormal, whatever. The 4 behaviors we have, the
Yes.
behavior pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could do a topic on that, would be great.
Mm-hmm. So I think next week, you know, I will deal with some other core issues as well, and according to what you've just said, I'll also look at assertiveness.
Thank you for that.
Mm.
Thank you, Jude.
Okay, so anything else from anyone else?
Jude, I have a problem with control. I'm a bit of a control freak.
Right.
She got herself a live one.
Yes.
If I let go or surrender and something happens, then I think to myself, I was being lazy. I didn't care.
So you're really hard on yourself. This is where, remember I said, you know, having a full-on control issue means you can be very rigid and perfectionistic, and you can apply that to others.
Yes.
You can also apply it to yourself. And all you're going to do is...
So are you saying, what's the best way? Are you saying surrender is the best way?
Yeah, I'm saying
you've got
to let go, because you're blocking the energy.
So whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, whatever happens, happens.
That's it.
I just have to let it happen and trust that it's for the best, because it is.
Yeah.
If something's meant to be, I can't control that. You know, if the economy takes a major downturn, I can't control that. If, you know, if the housing market becomes completely blown out, I can't control that. You know, if other people want to go and do something stupid, I can't control that. I can give them a bit of feedback, but I can't control even my own loved ones, even my own kids.
That's it. That's the thing. That's the part. Because you see it, and then I think to myself, is a responsibility or is a control?
Yeah. You know, I think parenting is a very difficult balance, because kids do need to make their own mistakes. Otherwise, how the hell are they going to learn anything? And, you know, I think one of the reasons that I've ended up learning, having some really very deep lessons in my life, is that I've just made so many mistakes.
That's good to hear, because look at you now.
Yeah, and you see, I've never minded making mistakes. I've been a calculated risk taker. I've always been willing to take a risk, not stupid, not completely insane risks, but, you know, and it's through that, and through making lots and lots and lots of mistakes, and following my heart a lot of the time, most of the time. And, you know, I'm willing to make mistakes. I don't mind getting it wrong, because I know that there's no other way. I will learn. And it's that kind of experience that brings a lot of wisdom, ultimately.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, I've got friends who've played a much safer game in life than I have. but they haven't learned what I've learned.
I think I might butt in here,
Yeah.
if I may. I think we learn through our mistakes a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
We make the mistake, we make it once, and we learn from it.
Mm.
So we overcome that, and then next obstacle comes, you know,
Mm.
you overcome that.
And if we're really clever, we learn from other people's mistakes too. I have.
That's
Me
right,
too.
right?
Mm.
Yeah, definitely that one.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm working on the control. I'm getting better.
Mm.
But
Yes.
still a little bit
And it's
perfection.
you just have to be very, very aware of what you're doing. Awareness is the key to working on ourselves. And, you know, the lovely thing is about meditation that it really develops our awareness.
That's the thing. Yeah,
Because
definitely. That's what's...
we need to turn that searchlight of our awareness onto ourselves. Self-awareness is so fundamental to transformation. Without it, I'm not going to transform. Someone else might say, you know, you've got a problem, dear, you know, and this is what it is. But if I can't see it, I think they're crazy. I don't think I'm crazy. I think everybody else is.
Oh, and
And
I
that's
know
called
people
narcissism.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm pretty hard at, like, I can see it when I do it, and I know I am, and a bit of a perfectionist and try hard. So I think that has to stop.
Yeah,
I wear myself out.
Perfectionism is certainly one of my tools of trade because, you know, with the stuff I do, I have a habit of being perfectionistic about it, and I think people in the creative arts have a strong tendency this way, and you know it has its pros and its cons.
Yeah,
but
wears you out, doesn't it, Jude?
Yeah, it can.
Like you're lighting, right?
Yeah, it can
I
crush
think that's why you have to be assertive
with yourself.
With yourself, exactly.
With yourself.
With yourself. Because I'm assertive. I'm very assertive. So I don't that, and I'm still a control freak and a perfectionist.
You kind of both.
I'm all those things. I'm working on it.
Well, you've certainly gotten well to first base because you recognise it.
Exactly. And then yeah, thanks you. When you brought it up tonight, I was just like ding, ding. So that was good. Thank you.
You'd be pretty hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't have control issues.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It's part of being human.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Lydia.
Thanks.
Anything else? Well, if there's nothing else, I think that we will have some meditation. And as always, there won't be any music, and I'll just speak a commentary for a minute or two. And so I breathe into the innermost part of my being, filling myself with serenity, as I let go of all the unnecessary baggage in my mind, all the things that I carry around with me that have no purpose, no meaning. It's simply that I'm attached. And so I let go of the thoughts and the needs. And I find I can breathe much more freely and deeply. Bringing the oxygen of life deep into that innermost part of my being. I go deep. Allowing everything to recede. Allowing all the situations to just be. I don't need to control anything. And the freedom of letting go is blissful. When I let go, I feel so much peace and rest. The world can carry on without me. Others can live their lives without me butting in. And I can get on with the business of living my own life. In a deep and powerful way when I let go. There is nothing to hold on to. Nothing. And when I let go of the need to hold on to something, I'm free. I can just be. I am myself. And things can come to me freely because I'm unencumbered by expectations or demands, wanting certain outcomes, trying to control situations. Energy can then move freely around me when I let go internally. And I experience the freedom to be. I allow others to just be. Trusting that whatever is, however things are, this is simply what is meant to be. I leave room for God to come into my space and the space around me. I make room for God to be in my life by letting go. Om Shanti.